what's your initial thought?
Okay, so I did see a headline about something about this song. I
Hmm.
didn't obviously read it or pay attention to it because I didn't care. Um, because as you said, they want to call everything racist.
Yep.
I don't think the song is racist, but I have a lot of problems with it just
Okay.
because the mentality that this guy is speaking of is like a good old boys mentality. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, you can't pull that stuff in this part, in this town, because we don't let that fly. The thing about it is, it reminds me, and forgive me because I don't remember the young man's name who was shot and killed by three white guys because he was running and he was jogging in the neighborhood, and because they were in a small town, these three boys thought they could go and just and stop him from running and decide to kill him.
You're
You
gonna
see, that's
you're gonna
no
open up
wait,
a
no wait,
can. You're
wait.
gonna open up a
I'm
can on this one, but go ahead. Go ahead.
but let me tell you, because that's who he's speaking to. He's speaking to people with that mentality right there. Is that to say everybody in a small town's like that? No, of course not. But when you sing that kind of song, there's a certain mentality that he knows that those people who are sitting there saying that these are the boys who follow people like Hank Williams Jr. Like a country boy can survive. There's no mistaking who that song is for. And so, this is where the good old boys were. Sheriff Buford T. Justice, in his small town, you don't come in here and do these things, boy, because this is my town, that sort of mentality. And that is the mentality he's speaking to. And to pretend that he's not, yeah, that's not true.
That's that's any community. Any community. You could be in the inner city and people will be like, oh, you don't come into my block with that. You don't come into my hood with that. That's everywhere. Like
Agree.
in that particular song, he made no mention of race, no mention of
Yeah,
anything. He was just saying if people are gonna come to the extreme like that, he didn't even pick a political party. He didn't pick a side. Granted, he was showing like the Antifa riots and stuff, but like he didn't specify any particular group. He was just like, bring that crap to our town and see what happens. Right. And like I said, that stuff happens in the cities all the time, even for people within the city. Like if you're west side, you don't come to the east side. Right. If you're south side, you don't come to the north side. It's like that's a given. That's in any community. So it's like when I first saw all the outrage, like just like you said, I never heard of the guy, and so I wanted to find the video, and I watched the video, and I didn't see anything wrong with it at all. It's like where I live in a small town. I was raised in a small town, and honestly, if you think only white country rednecks live in small towns, I'm not saying you personally, but that in itself is an issue. Like there's a I don't want to say there's a lot of diversity, but there is diversity in our small town here in Charlestown, Rhode Island. And everyone knows each other. We have each other's backs. Like if somebody was randomly walking in my yard, my neighbor would come over and be like, that don't happen over here. It's like this is our small town feel. It's our small town vibe, and we definitely have all of our neighbors' backs. So coming from being someone coming from and living in a small town, I get what he's saying.
okay. And I get what you say too. That's why I said in the beginning, I don't think it's racist.
Mhm.
I think though that he's pandering to a certain group of people because as you said, he showed Antifa. He didn't show the good old boys. So when you omit something, people pick up on that as well. He ain't showing the good old boys and all, and their redneck ways and their beliefs and everything and the crap they do. He showed Antifa. So the good old boys, to me, when you don't show them, you're saying, "Oh, well, you're welcome because you think like us. You feel like we do." And so by not adding certain things in there, he's saying certain things, and I don't, and again, look, I came from a small town in the South, and we're very diverse, and yeah, we feel the same way, and it doesn't necessarily mean that. What I'm telling you is my belief is that the people he's singing to, they don't see diversity. They see all white. Now, I don't know that I don't think he meant it that way. I don't know if he meant it that way or not. I can't say. All I can tell you is that there's a bunch of good old country boys who think, yeah, bring that shit down to my town and watch and see what me and Bubba do, you know? And first off, him and Bubba are full of shit anyway, because the majority of them are cowards as it is, and they wouldn't do a damn thing unless there's 100 of them to do it with. So,
See what you just did though? Like, see what you just
yep,
did? Like
I do.
when we talk about other topics, right? And I'm not gonna go there because then we're gonna end up going down a different rabbit hole. When we talk about other topics, we talk about the I feel, I feel, I feel. And
Right.
that's just what you did. You said when he says this, I feel this, right? And
Right.
and so and so when you actually listen to the song, right? When you listen to the song, you can talk about one thing without mentioning the other thing. That doesn't mean you condone the other thing. It's like that's one thing in this politically correct thing world that we live in. Like if I sit here and I say something about Joe Biden and someone comes in, well, Trump, blah, 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 blah. Like I'm not talking about Trump at this moment. At this moment, I'm talking about Biden. Like just because I'm criticizing him doesn't mean I'm endorsing him, right? So the clips that he showed in that video, that doesn't absolve any of the right wing groups or anything. What those people did was
Mhm.
wrong. It was wrong, and to sit there and point that out, there's nothing wrong with that, right? If he was to post a video and he had the Proud Boys and whoever else you said, the good old boys. I don't know if they're the same group or two different groups, but whatever the right wing groups are, if he did that song and he pointed out those groups, the liberal media would have had nothing to say about it. Not a
Good. So why,
thing.
right? So why give them something to say? That's the thing. See, omission does say something. And if you're saying there, and here's the thing, I don't agree with you on this particular point, because if
Okay.
you're sitting there talking about Biden, okay, and every time we talk, all you talk about is Biden or Hillary or Chuck Schumer or Barack Obama, and I say to you, Robert, how about we go down on the right and talk about them? And you say, okay, let's do that. So when we talk about things, if we're only going to point out one side or the other, we by our own omission, we are saying something. We're saying no matter whether it's corruption or not, we believe this side's a little bit more corrupt than this side. I don't buy into that. I believe they're equally corrupt. In fact, the one thing I wanted to talk about tonight, which I'll bring up later, is the DNC pulling their same dirty ass old tricks that they've always been pulling, and they're pulling them again because they're corrupt. And and as we've talked about a million times, people, we have the government we deserve because we put up with it, because that's who we are. You don't
Mm-hmm.
like the If you don't like the way our politicians act, it's because you act just like them. That's how they got in there, because you were okay with their behavior. Don't play stupid and act like we can do that for a little while, but when someone keeps showing us again and again and again what they're doing, and we pretend like we're oblivious to it, then you're either just stupid and don't deserve a right to vote, or you're being okay with it, and you're saying as long as it's my side that does it, it's okay.
All right, so let's backtrack a second to where you said that omission says something, because
It does.
I don't 100% agree with that. It depends on the topic. Like, and I'll use a sports analogy. So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
coaching basketball and my one of my athletes is crushing it on defense, just crushing it, but they keep making mistakes on offense. And I call timeout. I bring him over, and I'm just getting on him about his offensive performance. And he comes in, well, what about my defense? Right now, this moment, we're not talking about your defense. We're talking about your offense. So it's like not everything has to be spoken about in totality. So, like, if I'm talking about Nancy Pelosi, for this moment, this discussion, we're talking about Nancy Pelosi. What Mitch McConnell does has no bearing on this current conversation. And so that's what most people do in a debate is they deflect. Right. And again, I'm not saying you, but most people in a debate, they deflect. So if we're talking about apples, they want to bring up oranges. If we're talking about the left, well, the right does this. Well, Trump does this. Well, Biden does this. That adds zero value to the conversation. I think in any debate, you have to focus on what the topic is at hand. And people don't do that. And that's what our politicians bank on because they want us stuck in the hamster wheel so they can keep us controlled. Like if we can just zero in on one thing, like if we talk about climate change and then we start talking about climate change and then all of a sudden we're talking about something completely unrelated to climate change because we want to talk about everything in totality. So that's where I disagree. Like if you and I are talking about Mitch McConnell, we're going to talk about Mitch McConnell. We're not going to talk about the people on the left. We're going to talk about Mitch McConnell, what he does right, what he does wrong, what you like about him, what you don't like about him. And we're going to talk about that. What the people on the left do has no bearing to that conversation. So that's where I disagree that omission means something.
Okay, so let me punch back just a little bit.
Okay.
Just a light tap.
That's why we do this. Punch back.
Okay, so in the context that you just put it, you're correct. However, when we look at the bigger picture and put it in frame, then we see it is omission is saying something. For instance, let's say that you're athlete. Let's say you're a coach for an NFL team, and this athlete that you're talking to about his offense at that time, it matters in the game. But what happens when it comes time for his contract to be, it comes up and you got to negotiate a new contract with this guy? If you just say, well, your offense has sucked and your offense has sucked and your offense has sucked, you're trying to push an agenda of yours because you're trying to negotiate this guy down on his price. And he goes, well, you're not bringing in the fact of what my defense is like. So when you do omit that, you're pushing an agenda when you look at the bigger picture. It's the same way with Mitch McConnell. And we sit there and we talk about Mitch McConnell. I will always preface this. In no way is this a complete condemnation of the right and an approval of the left, because the left, and I've said this, I don't think I've ever criticized the right without first saying, listen, I already know the left is as corrupt as the right. Let's talk about Mitch McConnell. And then if you want, we can go back and talk about Nancy Pelosi, because they're two peas in a pod. I will never just go off on Mitch McConnell. And I cannot stand that man. And the other day, I know this ain't going to come across well, and I don't care. There are a few people in this world who I do not care if they pass away. He's one of them. He is a traitor to this country. I believe that with all my heart, and I don't care what anybody says, and that makes me a bad person. Paint me bad. I don't care, because the sooner that man's gone, the better off this country will be. And I feel that way, not with just about him, but there are people on the left I feel that way about as well. Hillary Clinton's one of them. So I'll just tell you that right now. But the thing is that, so when we look at it in a bigger picture, when those omissions are left out, and I believe, and again, and that's why I said I feel. I'm not saying I have facts. I don't pretend to present them as facts. I don't know what this guy was thinking. I can only tell you what I grew up around. And the people who listen to not just country music, this type of music. Like I said, I know people who listen to country music black and white, but I also know people who listen to Hank Williams Jr. and who listen to David Allan Coe, who was an admitted racist who sang songs with the N word in it. I know those people who listen to David Allan Coe and sing those songs when there aren't no black people around. I know that when David Allan Coe's singing, I know who he's singing to. He's not singing to country fans. He's singing to his little particular group of racist and little assholes, and that's who he's always singing to. Now, again, I don't know this guy. I don't know, what his message was other than, don't bring your shit down into our town. Okay, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that's all he meant because I don't know for sure. I'm just saying I know the kind of people who will take that message though and run with it and make it their own message.
Kurt, why are you gonna make me slam dunk you? I like you, Kurt. Why are you gonna make me slam dunk you right now?
Listen, you slam dunking me is like coming down on Shaq. Like, I may not be able to jump inside you, but I can back you down.
All right, so let's talk. So one thing what I say about Democrats is they move the goalpost. Right, they moved the goalpost. So right. when I gave my example, I said about speaking in the moment, right? In the moment. Mm-hmm. So when I was talking about my athlete, talking about okay, your defense is okay, but right now you're effing up on offense. Right, that's in the moment. And what did you do? You came out here, you took the goalpost from here, and you moved it over there, and you started talking about a contract. Right, this wasn't about a. Well, no, hold on. I let you talk. Okay. Right.
I know.
Right. So I didn't talk about that. When you're sitting down at a contract negotiation, that's completely different because then you have to talk about everything in totality. Like, I've been a long-time manager. I've been a long-time leader, business owner. When you're sitting down with an employee, yes, you talk about totality. When you're in the midst of a basketball game, you're talking in the moment, or at a track meet or any type of of any type of sporting event. You're talking in the moment. In that moment, I'm not going to be talking about that kid about his contract. We're going to be talking about right now. There's 5 minutes left in the game. Let me finish. Right?
I want to ask you a question.
Take notes. Look. I got a notebook right here. When you're talking, I take notes.
All right.
And I patiently wait my turn. Damn it.
Right? You do. You're much better. I will say you're much better than I am at that. I'm sorry.
I'm sure you can read my facial expressions while you're talking too, because I want to jump in, but I'm like, nope. Let me be respectful. Let him talk.
Yep.
So that's my thing. Like when I'm talking with my athletes, like there's even in debates, even in politics, even in education, there are points where you have to talk in the moment, and there are points where you have to talk in totality. And I think that's where people get things conflated. Because if we're talking in the moment, like if we want to talk about the video that we just watched, let's talk about this video. Let's not talk about the what ifs. There's a time and a place to talk about the what ifs, but let's talk about what we just watched. And that's the problem with U.S. politics is people can't stay in the moment. They start talking about stuff in the past. They start talking about something that somebody else said. And it's like, no. Stay right here. Stay right here. Like Nancy Pelosi said this. Chuck Schumer said this. Donald Trump said this. Let's talk about this statement. Let's dissect everything that we can dissect about this statement. And then we can move forward. Because like you see it on social media all the time. You see it on Twitter all the time. You have the tweet, and then you have the first couple responses. And then by the time you get to like the 30th response, you're on something completely different. And the initial point is completely lost. And that's where people go wrong in debates. And that's why things never, ever get resolved, or, nothing gets moved forward, because the main topic gets lost because you're talking about other stuff.
Okay, so I want to ask you a question. Do you think that when this man wrote this song, he was writing it in the moment or writing about the totality of it?
I'm gonna give you my straight up answer. He is a musician, right?
Hmm.
Musicians are about making money. They're not
Right.
about
Okay.
they're not about making sense. They're not about making political statements. They're like, what can we put out there that will make people listen? And look at what happened. His song is number one. His song is
Okay.
number one.
Keep going.
So
Keep going,
so
though.
no,
Keep
I'm
going.
saying that like that's my answer. When they wrote, because you got to remember, it's not like people just write songs. Like there's financial agendas about all this stuff. Why do you think Michael Jackson died so young? Because he started exposing the music industry, and it's like, and I'm not moving the goalposts. Like this is still in the same family, and even with Tupac was trying to pull away from death row. Whether you agree with his music or not, he was trying to pull away from death row. What happened to him? He ended up dying early. Biggie, like people think that these were just thug gang related. No, these guys were challenging the status quo within the music industry. So, with that being said, the executives that be have a huge role in what these songwriters write because they're writing things that's going to make them money. And everybody knows controversy sells. Remember Miley Cyrus twerking with the stupid foam finger? And she made $60 million from that stunt. Know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So she wasn't out there trying to talk about morality and women's empowerment and all this other crap. They were like, we need a stunt that can give us a cash influx. And I think that's what this is.
All right. So what I'll tell you is we'll come back to this
Mm-hmm.
topic. We'll talk about Jamie Foxx. We'll talk about
Okay.
Dave Chappelle. We'll
Yep.
talk about Martin. We'll talk about all that stuff that supposedly is that's happened and
Mm-hmm.
it's going on in Hollywood. We'll talk about that. But right
Okay.
now, you made the point that they write songs, they make videos to make money.
Yep.
And nothing did he write in that song did it say one thing or another about Antifa or Good Old Boys. But if you think for 1 second that the Good Old Boys are the whatever the hell they're called,
The
the
Proud Boys.
Proud Boys, if you don't think that they were left out intentionally, I got news for you. They know who their market is and who's going to buy that damn song. And don't tell me that for 1 second you believe that the Proud Boys weren't put it, that they weren't left out for that reason. Because as you just said, they're there to sell songs. You put the Proud Boys in there, all of a sudden you're sending the wrong message to the people who are going to buy that song.
Do you know who the leader of the Proud Boys is?
I don't.
You
I know
don't?
he's been in. No, I don't because honestly, I'm because I neither the Proud Boys or Antifa do I agree with their tactics or their behavior. They're both wrong.
But I'm just saying, but do you know who the leader is? Because
I've
most
heard
people,
his
because
name.
most people don't.
No, I've heard his name, and I know that I know he's been to court for several things, and but to be honest with you, I don't care. It's like I don't know who the leader of Antifa is either. I don't care
See,
because it
but
doesn't
but
matter.
the Proud Boys is a what group?
A what group?
No, I'm asking you, is a what group?
Oh, you're like a racist group?
Yeah, they're a racist group. So again, going back to, do you know who the leader is? The
No,
leader's
but
Cuban. The
so
leader of the
Cuban.
of the Proud
Are
Boys
you?
is
Wait a
Cuban.
minute. Wait a minute. You're not. You just struck out. You ain't hitting a home run with that. Cubans are some of the most racist motherfuckers you will ever find
I'm
against
just
black
saying. Hold
people
up.
and other Hispanics.
But the point is,
This
you
ain't
thought he was white,
bullshit.
didn't you?
No, I
You
didn't
thought the
know. I
leader was
just said
white.
no. I told you I didn't know because I don't care. But don't think Cubans aren't racist. They're racist against other Hispanics and they're racist against blacks. They truly believe they're at the top of the food chain
I'm
there.
I'm just
Maybe
saying. My
maybe underneath
point.
white people. because
I'm
they
just
think they're the
saying, my
right.
point is most people think that the Proud Boys is like all of these white people that are just hating on people of color, where the leader is a Cuban. He's not even a white person. It's like
Yeah, see,
and most people only know what they see on liberal media, because liberal media
I
shows the Proud Boys as Nazis, as white supremacists, and they go right down the list. But if you hold on. So
okay.
there's a video, right? There's a video with the leader of the Proud Boys where he talks about how they started that organization. Because me in the media. I always say with the media, there's an agenda. There's an
Hmm.
agenda. I mean, and even with Antifa, right? I'll go on the other side because like I've seen videos with Antifa members and they talk about their true intentions, not the radicalized stuff that you see that the right wing media shows. Like and it shows them being compassionate and what the full movement stands for, kind of like the I'm just gonna say the gay community. I'm not saying all the letters, right? It's kind of like the gay community, how there's the majority of people that have great intentions, but the extremists get all the media. It's the same scenario. So I think there are people within Antifa that have good intentions, but it's the extremists that get all of the attention. And then same thing with the Proud Boys. Like when you watch those videos with the leaders and you listen to them, like it's like you can tell the difference between someone who's rehearsing for the camera and someone who really feels what they're saying or really believes what they're saying, and you can feel what they're saying. And so as I listened to this guy talk, I was like, this is not what the liberal media shows. It's like this is not at all. So I'm thinking both sides. Again, going back to what Trump was saying about how there's good people on both sides, I think this is what he meant. It doesn't matter if you're Antifa or if you're Proud Boys. Both sides have good people. It's the extremists that put the stain on both sides.
I absolutely agree with you 100%, including what Trump had said. I agree with you. Here's the thing, and I keep saying this: you, as whatever group you happen to belong to, it is your responsibility as that group to shut those goddamn extremists down and tell them and let the world know these people don't speak for you. If you don't want that on your moniker, if you don't want people looking at the gay community as people who believe that kids should be allowed to get, you know, bottom and top surgery at whatever age, then you need to speak up against these extremists and
Yeah.
shut them down and say they do not speak for us and they are not part of us. You can't just sit back and do nothing and think, oh well, people will figure out that they're not part of us. No, you need to make sure everyone knows that and you speak up against them. So whether you're Antifa, whether you're Proud Boys, whether you're gay, whether you're black, I don't give a damn. If you see people in your community doing things that you know are bullshit, call them out and put an end to it. If you can't stop them, at least let the people know that they do not speak for you or your community, and then part from them. And that's what's happening right now in the gay community, where a lot of gay people are saying we don't even want we're GLB. We don't even want the T anymore. And
Mm.
unfortunately, I don't agree with that because the real trans people are going to be hurt. Now, mind you, it is still a difference between trans people and the GLB community, but I don't mind the trans community being part of us. It's because it's not them who's causing all this ruckus and all this bullshit and all this outrage. It is these extremists who most of them aren't even trans themselves,
Mm-hmm.
nor are they gay. But the gay community has not stepped up and called them out and said, "You're not even part of our community." I have to, I actually wrote a letter to the HRC today, um, the Human Rights Campaign, because they wanted another donation from me. And I told them, I will never give you another dime for as long as I live as long as you continue to allow and speak up for these trans extremists, and you have Pfizer as a major donor to your campaign, to your nonprofit, so that they can get these drugs in order to change sex, or their sex hormones.
It's all about
So
money.
I don't. Right, it is, and so I just. And again, so if we don't want, like, yes, there are good people on all sides. I think there are good people who have the like they're in the right frame, they're like the right mindset, but their leaders, or some of the leaders, are pulling the wool over their eyes, and they don't see what's really going on, and
Bingo.
unfortunately they get caught up in that.
Absolutely. See, so, and this goes back to what I was saying about staying on topic, right? Because when you have these conversations outside of here, or just outside of whoever you're talking to, that's where things get just inflated. Because I think I told you a few months ago, one of my gym clients, like, we started talking about abortion, and she went from 0 to 100
Right.
like so fast. And I reeled her back in, and I was like, just calm yourself for a second and just listen to what I have to say. Because the popular opinion is like, if you have a penis, you shouldn't be talking about this. And it's like, but my penis helped make that baby.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, at the end of the day, should I have full autonomy to make the decision? No, but I should be involved in the conversation. And so, like,
Absolutely.
when you come in and you take that stance, people quickly wanna, like I was saying earlier, they want to throw interference. And it's like, no. But when she actually calmed herself and she listened, sorry, there's a bug terrorizing me right now. Right. But like, once she actually listened to my point of view, she was like, she's like, I never thought of it that way. I said, yes, because people are so quick to just jump right to the talking points, and those talking points that the politicians want us to take to keep us fighting so we don't come together. And I've said this to you before. I'm sick of the whole community thing. Enter whatever demographic. We're Americans. We are Americans. Okay, the World Transplant Games is next year. I am on Team USA. I'm not on Team Black America, Team Gay America, Team Trans America, Team Black America. I'm on Team USA. It's like, we are one people, and we're all the same. We might look different. We might be attracted to different people. We might have different interests. We might have different talents, different skill sets. But at the end of the day, we're all the same. If you get shot in the heart, what's going to happen?
Die.
You're going to die. If I get shot in the heart, what's going to happen?
Die.
I'm going to die. It doesn't matter who I'm attracted to. It doesn't matter my skin color. It doesn't matter if I believe in God or not. None of that stuff matters. It's like, it's all made up. Like, when people say, like, gender is a social construct, life is a social construct. All of life is. So it's like, if you're Black, you should like this kind of music. You should walk this way. You should wear your hair this way. If you're gay, you should think this. You should believe this. You should hate religion, and like, all of that stuff is made up. And people ask me all the time, like, you have a podcast that's motivational, it's uplifting. Like, why do you want to talk about these things? I said, because most people can't. That's why I want to talk about these things, because most people can't formulate an opinion without becoming unhinged and yelling and screaming. Like I told you, my own brother blocked me three
Right.
years ago. 3 years ago, because he couldn't handle facts about his Democratic Party. And when I'm sitting here with you, I don't sit here and just shit on the Democrats. I share what I see, and you respond accordingly. And that was all I was doing with him. I was like, dude, I said, I'm not absolving the Republicans of anything, but the party that you're voting for, this is what they do to people who look like us. And he just could not handle that at all. And he chose to sever ties with me. And we always had a good relationship, you know? And he chose to sever ties with me over his political beliefs. It's like unfreaking real.
Yep. It's unfortunate, but many people have come to that point because, again, they don't believe what they see; they see what they believe. You know,
Yes.
and that's and it's unfortunate that people don't have enough self awareness, enough self introspection to see what they're doing to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate. You and I are, even if we get off track a little bit, we can call each other back, like you just did earlier for me,
Yep.
and put me back on track. Because sometimes it doesn't matter who you are, you can get off track. The thing is that once you know, don't double down, back up and say, okay, you're right. Let's
Yes.
start over. Let's do this right. But
Mm-hmm.
people don't. That it's all about doubling down and not backing up and showing who's that you're tough. But that's not. It shows you're weak. If you can't ever admit that you make mistakes or that that you're wrong at sometimes, then
Mm-hmm.
it just shows you're weak. That's all it is.
See that, and you have to learn from each other's lived experiences. Like, I go back to when you and I were talking about police brutality, and I've had 99.95% positive interactions anytime I've gotten pulled over, and then listening to you talk about what you went through. It's like I'm not going to discount what you went through, but at the same token, I got to stand by what I went through.
Right.
It's like that. That's not about right or wrong. And I think that's where people go wrong in these discussions, where it's like, well, I got pulled over and I got thrown out of my car and shoved up against the thing, and I had a gun put to my side. All of that happened, but this is what happened to me. I said, so somewhere in there, like, we gotta find a common ground, So it's like
Well,
it's like we can't just lump everything into just one ideal, because that's not always the case, because people are different.
so one of the things about solving problems is you first identify the problem. And let's say, for instance, in this particular instance where you're talking about, the problem would be bad cops. Okay. So then we have to, once we identify that the problem is bad cops, we need to go, what causes that? What causes
Mm.
cops to be bad? And then we can find what it is that's similar that in each instance where we can go, oh, here are some of the main um, factors that are put in play every time people are abused or we have these cops abuse people. For instance, being black is one of them. But I think more than being black, it's about being poor because poor white people are treated the same exact way poor
Bingo.
black people are. And
Yep.
so we can say poverty is a reason why they're treated because these cops, because again, they're human, but they look down on poor people like most of society does, as if they're better than them. And they feel as though they can treat them worse because they're poor. They can treat them like children. They can talk to them like children. They can tell them, sit your ass down on the ground. Who the hell talks like that? I don't care if you are an adult man. I don't care if you have $1 billion in your account or not a dime in your pocket. No man should be talked to like that and told, to sit his ass on the ground as if he's a child.
Mm.
I wouldn't. You really shouldn't talk to children that way. To be honest with you. So the only way we're going to find solutions for things is to come together and go and take in everyone's experiences and then find the commonalities and find out why these things happen. And because, again, as you said, you have your experiences, I have mine. I know people who've had far worse and far better. And find out, okay, so what's why do we all have these different things? But more than that, we're able to look at each perspective and go, okay, so because you've had 99.95% positive experience, we can assume and rightfully so, that obviously all cops aren't bad. You know, at least at a certain socioeconomic level, they're not bad. I mean, who knows? Maybe they are once they go below that socioeconomic level. But the thing is that we can start putting things together and figuring out what needs to be done. What the root problem is that causes this to happen. So um, anyway,
See, it's like
but I did.
what we gotta fake. I mean, what we gotta remember too is like I've lived. Yes, I live in a small town now, but I've lived in the city as well. So
Mhm.
because people always say, oh, well, if you lived in this place or that place, it would be XYZ. And my response to that is like, if you have to be that specific, then it's not that widespread of a problem. It's like if you have to be that specific, so like being here in Rhode Island, it's like, we don't have huge cities because, our state is tiny. Like there are cities bigger than our whole state, but just still, but when you're in the city, it's definitely a different environment. Like my daughter and I were talking about this last week, but like, you don't you don't know what these cops go through. It's like I don't even care about how people always talk about training. You can train till you're blue in the face. Everything changes when you have a gun pointed at you or a knife pointed at you or someone holding a knife to someone else's throat and you're in their presence. Like thing as human beings, it doesn't matter what the training is. As human beings, we have a flight or what the hell is it?
Fight.
Fight or flight. That's it. Fight or flight reflex. Like, and that's something that you just can't control. And now again, that doesn't absolve,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't absolve people of anything because again, it goes back to we can't lump everyone into the same thing. There are some people who can control that. There are some people who cannot. And again, that's why we got to stop lumping everyone together. Again, doesn't matter if it's like the Jewish people, black people, gay people, straight people. Like it doesn't matter what community you belong to. There's good people in each one. There's extremists in each one. So to just say I'm part of this community, then people are going to assume that you subscribe to everything that community puts out. And as you know, in all of our talks for a couple years now, I don't. I absolutely don't. It's like I always tell people I am a human first person. Human, right? I support humans. I don't care what you look like. I don't care who you're attracted to. I don't care who you love. I don't care what God you worship. None of that stuff matters. Like if you need me and I can be there for you, I am there for you. Like that's just how I look at life. But if you do something that's a little messed up that I don't necessarily agree with, I will distance myself from you. And
Right.
that's just how I deal in my everyday life. But like when you're in these communities, it's like if this community promotes something that you don't necessarily agree with and you go against it, you get ostracized. Like I was saying a couple of weeks ago about Anna Kasparian saying, "Don't call me a chest feeder. Like I am a woman," and the left came after her hardcore. Or Dave Rubin on the right side and his husband, they both got surrogates to have babies for them, and the right came after them hardcore. It's like that. That's the type of stuff that I'm not down with, which is why I will never ever align myself with any one community.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. First off, let's get back to the cops real quick. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
simply because I've made that point many times that people don't understand what cops see and what they go through. However, I will say this: the overwhelming majority of cops out there don't ever have to worry about or ever experience someone holding a knife or a gun at them or anybody else. Most of their days are going to be mundane days, and any time that they end up having a problem is because overwhelmingly they are the ones who escalate everything because they know they have 10 other cops to back them up, a gun, a badge, and anything else they need. So they of course will escalate things. So I have seen time and time and time and time again, personally and professionally, I have seen cops go out of their way to escalate things, talk down to people because they felt like they could, and just basically try to instigate things, hoping that somebody will say something wrong or do something
Mm.
wrong to give them a reason to arrest them. Because see, that's an adrenaline pump there, and these are adrenaline junkies. Most of these guys, unfortunately, it does come down to training, but the training they're getting it really is the beginning of the problem because they're taught that it's them against us. It is the blue thin line gang against all the citizens because they're taught everyone out there is a potential, you know, that they're a potential enemy to you,
Mm.
and that they can kill you. And the only thing you need to worry about is making sure you go home safe. Screw the civilians that you're supposed to be protecting. You need to make sure you go home safe and fuck the rest of the world. And that's where they first start off on the wrong foot. It's just the way that these cops are taught that it's them against us. And there's so much more I could go into. I don't, and we don't want to go down that rabbit hole tonight either. But there's a lot more to it than that. And I'm going to tell you right now, the overwhelming majority of this is the fault of the training of the police officers themselves. And I will debate that with anybody because I have facts that will show that what I'm saying is true. So, with that, do you mind if we talk about the DNC for a second,
Go right
or do
ahead.
you want? Okay,
No, go,
so
yeah, go ahead.
we all know how corrupt the DNC is because we've seen them pull shit out of their ass several times, especially against Bernie Sanders, in order to make sure that Bernie Sanders didn't end up as the Democratic nominee. And it cost them the election because of it, because they forced Hillary in despite what the people wanted. And of course, Hillary got beat because they didn't want they didn't want her. She's not a likable person because she's a liar. She's corrupt. She's part of the system. So that's why Trump won because he wasn't. No matter what you say about Trump, he wasn't part of the system. He was an outsider. So that's why he won.
I agree with that.
Well, so here's what happened. It's been a few weeks now, but Newsweek came out with an article talking about, how the DNC blocked there's this organization. It's called High School. Um, it's the Democrats group of high school Democrats of America. So this is a high school organization that's got charters throughout the country in all different high schools. Marianne Williamson wanted to talk to these younger people because she understands that these are people who are disenfranchised. These are people she wants them to know what her policies are. And whether you like her or not, she should have a right to speak to these potential these Democrats who are either voters or are going to be potential voters when they turn of age.
Mm-hmm.
The DNC, the Democratic Party, blocked her campaign from being able to talk to them by going to the organization, the board, and saying, you are only to speak to President Biden. No one else. You cannot speak to anyone else.
Mm.
Okay, so
Sorry,
here's so
my
oh.
pizza came. Go ahead.
So the hypocrisy of this is that the Democrats constantly say, we're the party that loves democracy. The Republicans hate democracy. We love democracy. And yet here you are with your authoritarian behavior blocking democracy and not allowing these kids to be able to speak to Marianne Williamson and getting her policies because you know damn well that with your corporate Democrats and the younger people are not for you. You want to hold on to that narrative as long as you can because you're still like grasping on for that power and that money dear life, because I'm going to tell you, at some point, and it'll be in our lifetime, they're going to lose the party because these kids are getting smarter and smarter, and they see through the bullshit. And the Democratic Party is not going to continue to hold it off the way they have by pulling this kind of bullshit. And that's the only way they'll be able to hold on to it as long as they have, is by being corrupt and being disingenuous and just pulling these dirty ass tricks out of their ass like they do all the time.
It's the billionaires that keep them around.
It's the Barack Obamas and the Hillary Clintons that who buy into the system because they see how do you go from being broke to having hundreds of millions of dollars, and yet that's exactly what the Clintons did. That's what I'm not going to say Obamas were broke, but they certainly didn't have the money they have nowadays.
Oh, hell no.
Pelosi's, they're all part of the system. All they care about is feeding themselves and gaining their own money and their own power for themselves, and fuck the American people. But again, same shit on the right. The same shit is going on the right, and and it's and again, people keep playing this game where we're on different sides and we're all for different teams. It's like neither one of these teams are for you. They're not. They don't give a damn about you.
Yep. So true. So true. Like we keep saying, same game, different playbook. It's exactly what it is. Same game, different playbook. And again, with Trump, that's why most of the Republicans aren't for Trump either, because he doesn't need the money. It's like they do. It's like they do. Huh?
Here's what I'll say about Trump is that the reason the Republicans don't want Trump is because Trump don't give a damn about the Republican Party. He cares about himself. So if anyone's going to make money, it's going to be him. He don't care what the Republican Party does. But here's the thing. All right, so before I begin on Trump, let me just say this real quick. Also, the DNC blocked North Carolina or South Carolina and New Hampshire blocked Marianne Williamson from being able to get the Democratic data files, which means that where they can see who the Democrats are, so they can go out in the field and talk to these people or call these people and let them know that who she is and what her policies are. They blocked her from getting it. So she even South Carolina came up with this nonsense. Well, in order for you to get these files, you have to pay $2,500. So her campaign paid $2,500. They still have not delivered her the files. So they're playing this bullshit game like they always do, and it's pure out corruption is all it is, and it should be illegal, and these people should be arrested for doing what they're doing, because it goes completely against our democracy to do this. So, I will say this: you can call the data place in South Carolina. The number is 803-799-7798. If you call them, be polite, but let them know you don't go for this. Especially if you're a Democrat, let them know this is not a good look for our party. And to pull this kind of stuff against our own people shows how corrupt we are. And why should I ever vote for you or remain a Democrat if this is the way you're going to behave? Now, with that being said, have you ever heard of MAGA rap?
No.
Okay, so there's this thing, your girl, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
She is not my girl.
She's your girl. She's sitting on this throne with this gold wings and everything, with this clown. They call it, the Democrats call him Fellatio Blow. I don't know if Horatio Blow, whatever his name is, some fat white guy and looking as stupid as he could possibly look, singing rap songs about MAGA and how great they are and everything. And she's in this video, like, you really can't. She's such an embarrassment to the Republicans and to the political system itself. You really, she's turned it into the WWE.
Oh boy.
I mean, honestly, you just can't get any worse than that. But here's the thing. Trump said he loves the uneducated. Those are his words out of his own mouth. And that's why Margie Taylor Greene and Laura Boebert and the rest of that crowd, they are just as uneducated as you could possibly be. And that's why they're following him, because it is a cult.
Boebert cute, though.
And she could be cute. She's as dumb as a bag of rocks. And her and Margie Taylor Greene have a little cat fight as to who's going to be the dumbest one out of the two. That's the thing.
Oh, God.
What is it? What did this guy call it? Oh, he said, this rapper that Margie Taylor Greene says she loves his music and stuff. He said, I don't like it when the children are monopolized.
Jesus.
Like, monopolized.
Anyway.
Although
your girl AOC ain't far behind.
No, well, even then, like that's one. I'm glad you bring that point up, because here's the thing: with what's all going on, where the hell is Bernie Sanders? Where's AOC? Where's Ilhan Omar? Where are they at least stepping up and telling the Democratic Party, hey, what you're doing to Marianne Williamson is bullshit, and you need to stop it and call it out? Where are they? So I agree. But listen, I really hate to do this. I have to go because I have an 8 o'clock. Otherwise, me and you would go. And so,
yep.
Closing remarks from you, young man.
So my closing remarks are, I totally slam dunked you earlier. So you act like you couldn't be slam dunked. I think I might have reverse dunked on you on that one.
I think we need to see the crowd what they say. I don't think so. I think I blocked that shit.
I'm gonna have to like edit that part out and put it out on the reel and see. It's like, who won this one?
Just remember what I said though at the very end. What do you think? What do you think when he was talking about totality or in the moment when he left that group out? Why do you think? You said it's there to make money, so he left that group out, the Proud Boys, because he knows who he's singing to.
Well, it's speculation, but all right. Have a good night, sir. See you later.